All right, everyone. Welcome to another live episode of Tempestade Talk. Yeah, we got a name now, Horta. How are you? Oh, I can't hear you.
I am doing all right. Can you hear me now?
I got you. I got you.
I'm doing all right. You see, my voice is a little rispy. I am just getting over a cold, but I'm good, ready to talk. Storm, WNBA, everything.
Well, we are so glad that you are here to join us. My name is Erica L. Ayala, founder of Black Rosie Media, again, alongside Roberta Rodrigues. And we are your co host of Tempestade Talk, which is a podcast that is giving you keeping a local eye on your Seattle Storm. If you're in the comments on YouTube, let us know where you're watching from. We have a lot to get into. If you're tuning in on IG, yes, we did mean to go live.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
we absolutely meant to go live. But anyway, thank you so much for joining us. You can leave comments on IG. I'll take a look at that as well. But we here at Black Rosie Media are all about empowering Black women and melanated creators, such as two Latinas here in sports media. But since this is not only a Seattle Storm podcast, but a WNBA podcast, the way we usually break things down is in 4 quarters. And actually, before we start the game, so to speak, we do our shoot around, which are topics, Joveda, that are throughout women's basketball. Of course, we are almost at the end of the regular season for the WNBA. So, of course, we'll be talking a lot about the WNBA. But there's some pretty cool things that have happened, including one that is Seattle Storm adjacent. Now, Jewel Lloyd had a fantastic season last year, even though the Storm did not. And
Yeah.
actually, she was the points champion, the scoring champion, excuse me. Not only was she the scoring champion last year, but at the time had scored the most points by any one player in a single
Mm,
season. But that is no more, Roberta. That title
that's
now
not.
belongs to Asia Wilson. Tell us a little bit about what happened.
First off, what is not going to belong to Asia Wilson this year, right? I feel like whatever award it is, like just give it to Asia Wilson because honestly, no one deserves it better than her. Up until last season, the single season scoring record was 860 by Diana Taurasi in 2006, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the year that she was MVP. So Jewel Lloyd started the season on pace to beat the record. Stewie caught up and ended up beating the record first, but at the end of the season, Jewel had more. Ended up having, I think, 20 more points than Stewie. So um, I'm sorry about my nose. So she um, she set the new league scoring record of 939. And that was in 40 games, right? Um, Taraz's record of 860 was in 34 games, but now Asia Wilson has 956 points in 35 games that she has played. She missed one game only her whole life, and so she reached that number in 35 games, which is impressive. Asia Wilson is in a whole other level. We've known that for a while, but this season she is showing that more than ever. And we had the opportunity to see that not only on the WNBA level, but also on the international level. With the Olympics. Is she playing Unrivaled or not?
I'm not sure.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think she is. I know that Chelsea Gray is, Kelsey Plum is, Jackie Young is, but I'm not sure. Anyways, because I'm sure that if she does, she's also gonna dominate there.
Yeah.
Uh, I think that she is. I think that she's having such an amazing season. She is 44 points from reaching the 1,000 point mark, which has never been done in league history. So she has okay. She needs to score 20, no, 11 points in each game. Yeah, right. Yeah, she needs to score
I
11
haven't
points
done the
each
math,
game
so
to
I'm
get
gonna
you.
trust in you there.
Yeah, no, okay. She has 956 points to get you 1,000. She needs 44 with 4 games left. Then I think it's 11 per game. I am not a mathematics person, so if that's wrong, I don't mind being corrected.
Mhm.
So yeah, what she's doing on top of everything, it's just an outstanding season for Asia Wilson, just like commending, showing that she's the best player in the world right now. And, there's no one that can deny that.
Yep. So congratulations to Asia Wilson. De'Erica Hamby also surpasses Lisa Leslie for the single
Hmm.
season rebounds in Sparks franchise history. That kind of comes though around the same time in the news cycle that reports are that the WNBA and Aces have filed to dismiss Hamby's case. And we've talked about that before. We're not going to get too into it because we have another gripe to take on, but it was noted on social media. I think it's worth noting here that even though there has been a file for dismissal on both sides, that does not mean that the court will dismiss the case that Hamby has brought forward in her lawsuit. So we will see if the courts and the judge feel that there is anything worth pursuing. So not quite done yet, just the most recent news there. And we're going to spend most of our time on the shoot around talking, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately, we're going to talk mostly about, what the WNBA and WNBPA has done with response to Commissioner Kathy Engelbert, who
Oof.
effectively asked, that some of what is happening has racial undertones. She was on a CNBC. She was doing a CNBC interview and was asked explicitly about some of the discourse around the WNBA and the racial discourse. And her immediate reaction was to talk about rivalries and how rivalries are needed to fuel a league. And never once did she dismiss, deny, oh, and other isms. So that was very disappointing, needless to
Yeah.
say. And the WNBPA, as well as some players and coaches, have since weighed in, Roberta. Before we get into how this relates specifically to the Seattle Storm, I want to read the WNBPA statement real quick. And they put WNBA Executive Director Terry Jackson. For those watching with us on YouTube, let me put it up on the screen for you. So the statement reads as follows. Here is the answer that the commissioner should have provided to the very clear question regarding the racism, misogyny, and harassment experienced by the players. There is absolutely no place in sport or in life where the vile, hate, racist language, homophobic comments, and misogynistic attacks our players are facing on social media. It demands immediate action and, frankly, should have been addressed long ago. The statement goes on to say, to the loyal fans who have been with the W for decades, thank you for your unwavering support. You know the history, the game, and the players. You know us best. And to our new fans, welcome. Your energy and passion are recognized and appreciated. Together with all of our fans, we will continue to grow a sustainable and thriving future for the WNBA. But let's be clear, fandom should live lift up the game, not tear down the very people who are bringing it to life. Racism and the toll it takes on everyone is never tolerable, let alone justifiable in the name of economic growth. This is about more than just basketball. It's about respect, accountability, and setting the standard for what we will and will not accept in our sport and society. So, again, this is in response. I'm not really going to get into Kathy's comments because, I mean, quite frankly, ah, cool. Rivalries, great. Awesome.
It
But
was
she
not
missed
it.
the mark. Yeah, she missed the mark when explicitly asked about the racism. And just so what I will do though is read the what am I trying to say? The question that, and I know Lindsay D'Angelo are posted it, but if I can get to it, of course, now my interwebs are working. But again, she was asked explicitly about racism. Actually, I just want to move on. Let's move on, because we also heard from Brianna Stewart, who I thought had a really good comment. Former Seattle Storm player, also plays for the New York Liberty, and of course, we have a New York Liberty podcast. Got to get up a podcast for New York Liberty fans. I thought Stewie had a really great response, and Noel Quinn also had a pretty good response. But let's go to head coach Quinn. You were able to hear some of her comments in real time. Roberta, what stood out to you regarding Noel Quinn and her addressing what was a pretty big topic of conversation earlier in the week?
Yeah, definitely was a big topic of conversation, and I saw it was what everyone was talking about. I didn't see. I think it was the first time that I saw like unanimous, like, everyone in agreement that that was not it by Kathy. And then you had uh, Terry coming up with the statement for the WNBPA. You had Stewie talking about it. You had Dejounte Carrington. And the truth is that players have been expressing that they need to feel safer, right? Um, it actually, I feel like they have been very cautious up until now, but it's becoming more and more clear that the people who should be taking care of the players' mind and body are not aware of what's happening, and that's my feel. It's almost as if they don't want to be educated.
I mean, is
uh
it that they're unaware? I don't know that they can be unaware. That just doesn't seem
mm,
like the right terminology.
that's
Like,
fair. That's
like
fair. I think,
I'm
yeah,
not gonna give them the benefit of the doubt that they are
that's fair.
unaware. Caitlin Clark has said she doesn't, pay attention to social media, and then she tweeted something which maybe, or reposted something maybe that indicates that
Yeah,
maybe she is on social media, but that's a whole nother conversation. We're actually not
yeah,
gonna get into that on today's episode. But I just
yeah.
like and I want to read hey PM channel, thanks for hopping in. WNBA missed an excellent opportunity to shut down the hatred and vitriol regarding WNBA players. She could have been firm in the denouncement of racism in the WNBA.
I agree, and that's something that everyone has been asking, right? From Kathy, from from a certain
Yeah.
player specifically. So going back to Noe, I didn't ask her directly what did you think about Kathy Engelbert's comments, because it was pre-game, and I wanted to be mindful of the space and time, anyways. But I asked her, as a coach, what is her what has she been observing among her players, and what does she do to protect her players? And the first thing that she said is that she said, I was a player in this league, and the reality is we don't just play basketball, we're human beings. And she said, our athletes go through so much, their mothers, their sisters, their aunts, their businesswomen, their brands. So she ends up and says with all of the words, I don't condone any racism. I don't condone any misogyny, any sexism, or any of those things. And I think my players are very aware of that. And I think that my job is as a coach to lead with my heart, and be an example for them. And she says again, we're here to play basketball, but I got to make sure that those players know that I'm here for them in any capacity. We're human beings first. So coaches, players, they are very aware of what's going on. I
Yeah.
think in no side, no one is unaware. What Erica said is very true, and I think that we have given the league and people who don't stand up the benefit of the doubt for a long time, and that has only allowed for what's happening this season to happen.
Mm.
What's happening to Angel Reese is unacceptable. No player should ever go through what she's going, and I feel like she is a very easy target from several fan bases. So you have the Kaylin Clark fans who just hate on her because of the rivalry. You have the Camila Cardoso fans who are uh, South Carolina fans who are now hating on Reese because they say that she is taking over Camila's place in the sky. And then you have, people who come from outside who say that she's a bad player um because she misses a lot. So and I see Angelica's comment here saying that Diamond the Shield also got everyone who had any sort of like interaction with Caitlin Clark. I mean,
That was
we can name
perceived as negative because Cheryl
yeah,
Swoops again.
yeah, Kennedy Carter, Dejanay Carrington, everyone. Like, you can't
Diana
talk about
Taurasi,
Caitlin
like,
Clark, Diana, everyone. Like, and it's not that like someone said something bad. You can't say anything that's not even positive, but like putting her on a pedestal of like the best thing to ever happen to women's basketball. If you don't say that, the fans are gonna come at you and say horrible things. And I feel like Andrea Reese is an easy target, unfortunately, because she's really good, and she's a brand. She's unapologetically Angel. That's who
right,
she is.
right.
She's a young black woman who speaks her mind and who is very secure of themselves. And honestly, people don't want women to be secure of themselves, and people especially don't want black women to be secure of themselves. And Angel Reese is there to fight all of that just by being herself. And just by being herself, she becomes the target of a lot of things. And I think that that was an amazing opportunity for Kathy to stand up for her players. Not only it's for the players to feel protected. I mean, can that the commissioner is supposed to be there. It's a league that's for the players. She should be thinking about the players first, and she is not. Like, when she decided to dodge that question and make it about business, she proved that her mind is not on player health and safety, and it's not on player mental health.
Yeah,
Her
and I
mind
mean,
is, yeah.
go ahead.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
I mean, I was gonna say the thing about it is that Kathy has never done that. Now, she represents a league that has done that, but remember, even though Kathy Engelbert is the first commissioner of the WNBA, no one who was effectively this, I don't even remember president. I don't remember what we used to call them, to be honest. That seems like so long
As
ago. But
president,
no
yeah.
one, no one overseeing the WNBA has ever taken that stand. It has always been the players. So I just want to set the
Yeah.
record straight there. And Kathy is not doing anything outside of what she has always done. That being said, that doesn't make it that it's that that's not to take her off of the hook. I guess what we're
Yeah.
starting to see now is, though, Kathy, I will also say, I don't know that it's only my opinion. I think if you look at where the WNBA has grown under her leadership, you can see that, Kathy Engelbert has also been someone who has pushed the needle when it comes to the business side of the WNBA. I don't think there's any arguing that. The point of the matter and what is falling short for the players, and you mentioned what Noel Quinn said, what's falling short is that the WNBA players have done a lot to embolden each other. I think Stewie's comments in particular, make it clear that this is a league where there is an expectation and, and a culture where players are going to support one another. And I'm going to pull up Stewie's comments here in just a minute, but that's the difference, is that Kathy Engelbert, she did not uphold the precedent that her
Yeah.
own players have set. So I want to just quickly go to Stewie's comments, because some people saying, oh, like, well, what could Kathy have said? And I honestly think that Stewie is a really good blueprint on what you can
Yeah.
say as someone who is in allyship. And I think she did a great job. I know that also, of course, now the video is having trouble. I know also Steph Dolson has said some things, and
Yeah.
almost everyone who has spoken almost said like something along the lines of obviously, or with it goes without saying, but apparently it did have to be said because the commissioner, yeah, the video doesn't want to work for us today, won't let us be great, but that's okay. You can check it out on Black Rosie Media social media. If you're watching on IG, it's definitely up there. But anyway, what Stewie was basically saying is that enough is enough.
Yeah.
She's like, there's no place and there's no tolerance for disrespect. And these are things that a lot of these players have said before. But again, when you say it with any proximity to Caitlin Clark, people who are quote unquote Caitlin Clark fans take offense to it. And you know what? Caitlin Clark and her fans, and we saw this with Sabrina Ionescu a little bit, not to the same extent with Kelsey Plum. We've seen this with white players in the league before, if we're being honest. There's also a lot that comes from other fan bases, whether it's from a specific team or from a specific player. So I do think it's worth noting that although the racial undertones definitely seem to swirl around one particular player this season, there are also very toxic conversations that happen in the WNBA space, which is why Black Rosie Media has created a community on Slack where we are going to try to eradicate some of that as much as possible so that we can talk basketball and even some of the sillier conversations in life, but without the toxicity. So if you want to join us, make sure to check out the links that we have on social media. But I do want to keep it moving. I mean, thank you, Angelica, for joining us over here. Aloysius, good evening. I know Liberty and Wings are playing. We'll have our Gotta Get Up episode tomorrow. So we'll get back to that. But thank you so much, for joining us. First time. Well, welcome. Glad you're enjoying the commentary. And now it's time to get into the first quarter. So that was our shoot around where we talk about topics more broadly in women's basketball. Now we're gonna get into the knit and the grit of the Seattle Storm. And the Seattle Storm right now, Roberta, are back to playing winning basketball.
Oh
They're
yeah.
3-2, above 500 at 600 in September. It's their best record since percentage-wise since July, where they were actually at a over 700 clip. They are bouncing back from being 333 winning percentage in August.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, the return from the break was not pretty at all. That
Come into play when we
uh
talk a little bit later about the standings. But what has stood out to you in the last handful of games for the Storm?
yeah, like I was saying, the return from the Olympic break was not pretty. That was a rough month of August. It was the storm ended two with 2 wins and 4 losses, and they're finally back on the positive with over 500. So it was rough. They were having a hard time finding their foot and figuring out lineups with changes and with, that big break that for a team that is just now being put together is can be detrimental. I mean, the Storm is a brand new team, and they were working really well before the Olympic break. I think they were on a 8-2 run leading up to the Olympic break, and then things took a turn after the break because the team they didn't practice together. Some of them were together. You had Semi, Azzy, Jewel, and Noe away. So it was a rough return. We also had the introduction of Gabby Williams to the roster, which is a good problem to have. Adding someone to the mix is always it always takes work. It always takes adjustments. But when it comes to Gabby Williams, that's a good problem to have. Like if you're gonna have a problem, let that problem be named Gabby Williams. Because
Yeah.
she has been making a big difference for the Storm. She uh she was responsible for the Storm last home win, if I'm not mistaken, when the Storm had that defensive stop at the end when she basically like intercepted the ball.
That's like your favorite play. You talk about it all the time.
Yeah, it's amazing. Like you saw that live. I'm not joking. I was watching that play on repeat because every time that you watch, you see like a different movement that she made. You see a different reaction from the players. You see the fans. It's such a great moment because the Storm needed that. They needed that moment. They didn't only need they not only needed a win, they needed a statement win, even if it was a hard fought one. But they needed it, and that's what that play by Gabby Williams provided the team. The
Oops. Yeah, I think Gabby has definitely taken a little bit of time to get acclimated, and I think smartly, the Seattle Storm have, been able to work her in and integrate her. But she is getting starting minutes now. She's getting significant minutes now. If you were able to watch, for those of us tuning in with us, the game where the Seattle Storm played the um, against um the LA Sparks, you heard on the broadcast that they talked a lot about how Gabby Williams was able to integrate and get her shot back. Like she wasn't shooting particularly well from three-pointers.
Yeah, she's been doing a lot on different ends and different corners of the court.
Yeah, and that integrating that, it's almost akin to what we see from, Marina Mabry and how she's been able to
Mm-hmm.
spread the floor for Connecticut. So I think
Yeah.
it's been good. It's good to see that the Seattle Storm are back on target here. And I think they're going to need this. But what we've also seen is, Nneka Ogwumike. Now, this is not a franchise record, but Nneka Ogwumike last night, passed Sylvia Fowles for sixth on the all-time scoring list in the WNBA. Roberta, I know you have a few other points here, some players that are within reach potentially for Nneka.
Yeah.
Other great names within women's basketball, just basketball overall?
Yeah, so I'm a little Excel nerd, so I have an Excel spreadsheet here. She right now she right now ranks 11th in the all-time scoring uh, leaderboard for points in the WNBA. She is right below Katie Smith, who is 21 points ahead of her. So reachable. She can do that next game, probably. 21 points is completely doable for NECA. She's averaging, I think, 16.6 a game for now. After that, uh, you have a player who was her teammate for a few years, a player who she won a championship with, and that's Candace Parker.
Mhm.
Reaching Candace Parker is going to be a little bit more, a little, more difficult because she's 143 points ahead of NECA, and that would require NECA to average 35.7 points per game in the next 4 games. Do I think it's impossible? By no means. Do I think it's likely? No. But it's a good problem to have. I do believe that she's gonna pass Katie Smith and she's gonna get in the top 10.
Which is
Excuse me.
really cool. And even if she doesn't pass Candace Parker this year, I mean, assuming that NECA is still going to be healthy, that is something
Yeah.
that definitely we will keep on the tracker for Tempestade talk next
Yeah.
season, because it's
Yeah.
definitely something that she can reach. You kind of mentioned, the next handful of games here, and we're going to roll through because I want to keep your voice as fresh as possible. Um,
Thank you.
but yeah, of course. So, one of the things that I think is really important is to talk about what the next 4 games look like. And one of them is going to actually tee us up for what we're going to talk about in the third quarter. So, I'm going to run through these quickly. We're not going to go exactly in chronological order or, in order of sequence, I guess I should say. But the next game is tomorrow. We know the New York Liberty are playing right now. I know we've got some got to get up listeners. I appreciate y'all coming through even when the New York Liberty are playing a game right now. I'm going to take a quick look over it to see if I can get that.
Oh yeah. Wait, so Dallas is playing back to back then?
Yeah, they so New York has been in Texas, not too far from me, about
Yeah.
4 hours. I know KT
Oh.
is very excited, but so anyway, back to Seattle Storm. They're gonna take on Dallas tomorrow. Um, Now they're going for the season sweep against the Dallas Wings. Dallas, valiant effort on the back end of the Olympic break. Getting Satu was really good for them, and unfortunately, not enough. The early season injuries, including to Satu Sabali, were just too much to overcome. So they are
Mhm.
eliminated from playoff contention. So although this is not necessarily a playoff barometer for the Seattle Storm, they still need to get wins, and we'll talk a little bit about that. That being said, they have not played Dallas since the Olympic break, and so neither Dallas didn't have Satu, and that means also that the Seattle Storm did not have Gabby Williams. So I'm very curious to see what that matchup looks like. Not much on the line for Dallas, as we mentioned, but definitely some things in play for Seattle. And again, we'll talk about that coming up. We mentioned Los Angeles, just played them at well, I'm just going to say Staples Center. It has a new name.
Staples Center.
You can look it up if you want. But this is going to be another test. And there were times, including coming right out of the gate, where the Sparks actually had the spark, if you will, and were able to really get things going against Seattle. It was a little bit of an up and down performance for the Storm, but they were able to get the win. And
Mhm.
so again, I want to spend a little bit more time in the third quarter. So I know we had a few little prompts here, but let's just roll through it. They have a game on the 17th, but we're going to talk about that game in a minute, Roberta. So
Yeah.
after the 17th, they play Phoenix on the 19th, and this will be their final game of the regular
Yeah.
season. We do know that the Seattle Storm have already made the playoffs, but they will be taking on Phoenix. And they're also going for a season sweep of Phoenix. So for me, Dallas and Phoenix in particular, while you're not necessarily gaining anything winning the series outright, because there's no there are no playoff implications by getting the sweep over these two teams.
Mhm.
It's still important to get the wins. And sometimes you look at teams that, at least on paper or statistically speaking, you should be able to beat. And Skylar Dickens Smith has alluded to this a few different times. Well, Dallas and Phoenix, on paper,
Mhm.
according to how the season has gone, should be
Yeah.
teams that Seattle can beat. But again,
Yeah.
it goes back to what we have heard from Skylar Dickens Smith, that they need to show up. And that is a very salient point, because their last home game, which is almost always in every franchise in any professional sport, fan appreciation night at Climate Pledge
Yeah.
Arena, they are going to be
Gold
hosting.
member shirt.
There you go. They are going to be hosting the Las Vegas Aces. And the reason that we left this off and we didn't go again in order is because this, to me, Roberta, is not only a really good test going into the playoffs, but it might be a preview of what we see in the first round. Now, if the standings hold, which is a big if, right?
A
A big,
big if.
huge if.
Big.
But right now, and we've talked about this before, the Las Vegas Aces were able to supersede, or they surpassed, the Seattle Storm. Almost said Kraken. Seattle Kraken had rookie camp today. But okay, the Seattle Storm was in that fourth spot, but the Vegas Aces have been able to get that fourth spot, even though they came hobbling out of the gate this season.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
but so for me, this is the game, Roberta, that I really want to come to you for your expertise, because not only could we potentially have an epic rematch, although in the first round of the semifinal that we saw two
Oh
seasons
God.
ago, which I thought was, oh my gosh, instant classic, it should
Mm.
be. But we
Yeah.
also know that Seattle has not necessarily met success against Vegas this season.
No, not really. There was one win against Vegas. Um but ever since, Chelsea Gray came back, that it hasn't worked for the Storm against them. In fact, Vegas has kept the Storm either on their average point per game or below. So the Storm average is a 3 point something per game. The last game, the Storm only scored 79 points, and then it was 83 and then 78. So it is a tough matchup for sure. Uh, there is the Asia Wilson factor, which plays a big role, especially when it comes to decisive moments. If you're deciding the fourth spot, that's a big deal for the Aces to get, especially coming as defending champions. Uh, no, you don't want to get the Aces in the semifinals. Absolutely not. Uh, Give me a second.
Yeah, you definitely don't.
You, yeah. Sorry.
I'll fill in for you just for a minute. You definitely don't. I was taking a look at our IG. Someone asked, if we talked about Kathy already? And yes, we did. But if you have questions, you can stick around for our fourth quarter, which is coming up next, because we take listener questions. So if you in IG or on YouTube right now, if you have any questions or comments that you want us to talk about, whether it's WNBA, and especially if it's Seattle Storm, type those in the comments now. Hey, there you go. Type those in now, because we will circle back to anything that we talked about on this episode, and definitely any questions that you have. That's what our fourth quarter usually is. We're in the third quarter right now, talking about whether we think it's a good matchup for the Seattle Storm to potentially get the Vegas Aces in round one, which, if the season ended today, right now, that would be the case, and honestly is likely going to be the case, even if
Yeah.
But there
even
are
if they
some
shift.
implications. Yeah, even if they shift, but it's not a foregone conclusion, I should say. None of the standings are locked in, including the New York Liberty number 1.
Yeah.
So and we'll get into those in a little bit, Roberta, but you said absolutely not. You do not think it's a good matchup in round 1. Tell us a little bit more about that.
Well, first off, the Las Vegas Aces, they are a tremendous team and they do have a playoff mode. And teams have to be very aware of that and they cannot take it from for granted. Yes, they struggled at the start of the season. Yes, they struggled their last game, but they are a very hard team to play against, especially because they have been in those decisive moments together. They have a core that has played and won 2 championship games. The Storm is going to play their first playoffs with this core, and that's not easy.
Yeah.
If you're getting into if your team is getting into the playoffs, the Storm, with a brand new roster against another team that has been playing together for years, has already won 2 championships. They are the defending champions, and they have who is good the person who's gonna be the MVP. It's very hard to it's a very hard matchup. Is it impossible for the Storm to beat the Aces? No, the Storm have beat the Aces once this season, and they've beat the Aces once the last semifinal. However, different team. That semifinal, Sue's last game. Um, it was, oh my god, that
That
final
was such a
shot.
good
I
game.
that
Oh my
that's
gosh.
like I have like I remember there was that someone screamed from the stands, "Leave us alone, Chelsea Gray,"
Oh my
because
gosh.
Chelsea
That's
Gray was
just
she
she
was
torments people.
destroying.
It's like
Oh
when
my
people type
god.
on social media, it's like Chelsea Gray, they have family. Like,
Yeah, that's
oh
exactly what
my
was going
gosh.
on. Yeah.
Oh
Um
my gosh. These people have
so
a
the
family. Yeah.
so it's gonna be a really it's gonna be a tough matchup if that's the case. Uh, yeah, I don't think the Storm's gonna lose their next 4 games and switch spots with the Fever. I know that nothing is decided. I know that nothing is locked in. But just thinking like statistically and taking into consideration the rosters and how each team has done, considering the Storm has the Dallas Wings tomorrow, and who has amazing games against Dallas? Jewel Lloyd.
Yeah.
Jewel Lloyd always has tremendous games against Dallas. Playing against Arike is probably one of her favorite things, and
Yeah.
it's beautiful to see.
Um,
So there's that. I do think with Satu, you have an additional challenge for the Storm,
yeah.
but with Gabby you also have an additional pro, for your side. You have someone who is going to be able to stop Arike, someone um who can actually interfere with Arike's, because she also does great against the Storm. I'm not sure if she her 40-point game was against the Storm. I don't remember, but I know that she had a 39 point something against the Storm. So Arike and Jewel definitely, like, 2 players to watch. Um, but so that all of that to say that I think the Storm's gonna lock in the 5th place. I think that Vegas might go up to 3rd, and I would rather facing the Sun in the first round of the semifinals rather than the Aces. I think that the
Yeah.
Storm, yeah, I think that the Storm matches Vegas is not a good team to get in the first round.
I agree. And I want to just point to, we have a comment coming from IG. Thank you so much for those checking out IG Live. I already had made all my IG Live jokes for the day, so I'm going to leave it alone. But the comment is, can you break down who would play who when it comes to the other teams? So first, let's take a look at the standings. So if you're
Yeah.
taking a look here, and I'll also run through them 1 through 8. We're going to talk about 1 through 8 because, well, the 8 teams make the playoffs. So right now you can see that 7 teams with the orange X, those are all those are all teams that have clinched a playoff berth. Not necessarily the position they're in now, but they have that playoff berth. Chicago is the first team in, and right now the Mystics would be the first team out, but technically you can see that the Chicago Sky, Atlanta Dream, and Washington Mystics can all still jockey for that 8th and final spot. But assuming everything stays the same, you have the lowest seed, which right now is the Chicago Sky, would play the highest seed. So that's the New York Liberty. So right now, if the season ended today or after the games today, then the New York Liberty would take on the Chicago Sky. That means that the Minnesota Lynx would take on the Phoenix Mercury, because you would go 1 versus 8, or 8 versus 1, 7 versus 2. So then that means Indiana, as the 6th seed, would take on number 3. And right now that is the Connecticut Sun, which, that is going to be interesting. And then you have, of course, 5 taking on 4. And right now the Seattle Storm are in that 5 spot, and the Vegas Aces, hence why we've been talking about it, are in that 4 spot. So that's why on our Seattle Storm podcast, we are talking about the potential of the Las Vegas Aces taking on the Seattle Storm. Even about a week and a half ago, it was likely going to be these 2 teams. The difference was that the Seattle Storm were in the 4 spot, which also makes a difference because that means they would have hosted Roberta. And what is also worth noting is that the round 1, everything before the semifinals is best of 3. Now, I have said multiple times before, they need to just go ahead and change that. A best of 3 series,
Absolutely.
we need to be best of 5 and then go to best of 7 for the finals. But
Absolutely agree.
hope, fix it, Kathy. I mean, hopefully we can. Maybe she'll fix that with autonomy, just like she fixed charter flights without having to go through the CBA. No, I will never let that go because I think it's wild that
No.
she made an argument. Anyway, I'm not
No.
going to get into that. So that was the comment that we had on IG. Hopefully that helps break it down. But now let's get into it. Because before we, and again, if you have any questions or comments, now's your time to put them in the chat so we see the first few, or else we're going to let Roberta go and rest up.
I'm sorry.
No, don't be sorry. I'm just so grateful that you wanted to join us, but we definitely want to get you some rest. But so if you have any comments, now's your chance. We also will have an episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans tomorrow. So stay tuned on all Black Rosie Media platforms for that. So you'll have your chance. We'll talk about some of the same topics, but more from the New York Liberty perspective. So I will get that Stewie video working tomorrow. Technology will not fail me, Angelica. I saw your comment. I will get it right tomorrow. But anyway, I digress. Let's talk again about the Seattle Storm because they can jockey for different position. They could technically fall, but you already mentioned that you don't see that happening. We talked about them playing Phoenix, talked about them playing Dallas, and with the chance to sweep. Obviously, the big question mark and the big challenge for them, at least I think, in their 4 games, is going to be Vegas. That being said, they have lost to the Sparks before. And again, we mentioned they played the Sparks pretty closely. All right, but let's talk about the playoff scenarios. And this came from the Aces. They had the most details. So I just dropped this in. And obviously they know, because they're so close with the Storm in the seeding, in the standings. So the Aces lead Seattle by a game heading into this weekend. Both teams have 4 games remaining on the docket. The Storm, again, play Dallas, LA, and Phoenix, along with of course, the Aces. The Aces own the tiebreaker, and that's because they have right now the advantage in the regular season. The second tiebreaker is the record against teams that finish
Yeah.
the season at or above 500. The Aces are 8-7 at the moment, and Seattle is 7-10. And see, this is where, and we could see a scenario, whether it's the Aces, whether it's Seattle or some other team, we could, Horeta, see some tiebreakers come into place.
Yes, we can, especially with this with the schedule, and that's what is beautiful during this season. It's been a season, you know, with all of the issues that have come with the visibility. I feel like if there was a season to introduce the WNBA to people, this is the season.
Yes.
uh and I think that, what was the first game that Indiana played was against Connecticut, which is not
Oh,
like a
yes.
big, well,
I was
which
there
it's
for
not
that.
like oh, that's amazing, I'm jealous. It's not a thing that, we hear about the Aces, the Liberty, Stuli, Asia, but you didn't hear people talking about, like, I mean, in terms of like pop culture, Dejanay Carrington, Alyssa Thomas, everyone knows their names now, and I think that's a great thing. uh so I think that I feel like the first 5 spots, there is a chance of changing, but I believe that's how it's going to end. I believe
Yeah.
that 1 through 5, I think that's pretty locked in. And past these most recent seasons, it hasn't taken that long for these teams to, lock in their spots. But our team's allowed to throw games.
I know. I thought that was hilarious. I mean, are they quote unquote allowed? I mean,
Nah.
not to make it all about the Mystics. That's a
Yeah.
taps to Misha Jones. But I mean,
Oh,
the Washington Mystics, they don't believe in throwing games. I'm assuming because
yeah.
they could have been sitting pretty with a lottery spot, and they decided
Oof.
not to.
Yeah. So I do think that Indiana, Mercury, Chicago, I mean, Chicago and Atlanta.
Yeesh.
I was looking at, I got the game status report, and I've been following this guy pretty closely because of Camila Cardoso, because, she's from Brazil. Um, so, and they sent the game status report, and it says Andrew Reese out, Diamond the Shields out, and then someone else out. Not even questionable, like just
Just
out.
out.
And
She's unavailable.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Uh,
exactly. And I feel for them, because I'm trying to get the Elizabeth Williams, who has
oh
been out.
yeah, that's a
So
big one. Yeah.
so yeah, Elizabeth Williams, Andrew Reese, and Diamond the Shields all out. They lost the
Girl.
last game against Washington, and Camila said in the post game presser, it was embarrassing. All due respect. Oh no, it's not Angelica who is a Mystics fan, right? It's Misha. Misha's a Mystics fan. Sorry.
Misha, yeah, Angelica. I mean, I'll let you speak for yourself, but I feel like the fan base is broad. Definitely a
Yeah.
Tosh Cloud fan, but she's with Phoenix
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how Angelica's feeling about Vegas these days, but we'll have to wait till she
Yeah.
pops in the chat. But I also found this before you continue. I want to read this comment because I thought it was funny. Y'all Alexis says, if only they let the storm overcome the fever so they can face the ace.
Yeah, because there's that also, right? Sometimes throwing the game could work on their favor. you
Yeah,
know
exactly,
I
exactly.
mean, and also the only team that is out of playoff contention is the Wings. So they can just play, like, party poopers for the Storm and beat
Yeah,
them, and they that can be can be their mentality. Or I don't know what's on their interest. There's a pretty big draft coming up.
Yes,
Uh,
there is, girl. Okay, Angelica made it clear for those who don't know or haven't followed our other Black Rosie media coverage. Angelica, Angie is an OG here, mostly on the women's hockey side, which, grr, oh man, women's hockey is a little bit of a mess. But says Mystics mostly, but also am salty they let Tosh go. Aces
uh,
players, yes. The org, no comment. So there you go.
sports in general. It's always that. I love the
Great.
player, the
Yes, exactly. And
organization.
that's what Angelica also says. I mostly follow the players though.
Yeah.
Grr,
Girl.
exactly. Grr, grr.
uh, so yeah, I think that it's going to be very interesting. But here's the thing: if you told me last year that Vegas and the Storm would be fighting for the same playoff spot, if you told me that, I would be like, "You're tripping," because like you know Vegas was the first place and got that seed very, very quick. The Storm was
Last
11-29.
season, yeah.
So yeah, so the Storm was like 11th place. So if you told me that it would be Aces versus Storm fighting for the same spot, I would be like, nah, you need to study a little more. But the unpredictability of the season is really good. I think that the Aces, despite the rough start, despite wobbling out of the gate, they because they know each other, because they have won championships together, and honestly because they have Asia Wilson.
Yep. Like I've
They
said, like she is literally because I do think MVP should be the player who has most value to their team,
Yeah,
regardless of if they're the number one team or not. Some people
yeah.
say MVP has to be best player, best team. I have always disagreed with that. I have said this before because I think it's so interesting that we're so quiet about MVP because ain't nobody saying that Brianna Stewart deserves to be MVP, or dare I even say Sabrina Ionescu deserves to be MVP. Now, do I think, as someone who grew up a Liberty fan and also hosts Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans, do I think that some people are quiet because the New York Liberty are the number one seed? Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Even I think
Yeah,
even if the Lynx end up getting number one, then people be like, oh, all right,
yeah.
fee for MVP. But ain't nobody saying none of that now. And I just think it's interesting.
No,
Do I think
yeah,
that anyone should beat Asia Wilson? I think she is both the most valuable player to her team, and I think she's the most outstanding player. I think those two
I
things are
agree.
different.
I agree.
And
Oh.
I wish they were two different awards because most outstanding player and most valuable player to me are not always the
Mm.
same. You know,
Do
like
you still have a vote?
I do.
That's
We
I
actually,
cannot wait to
yes,
see
I will
after.
reveal my ballot. We actually just got our ballots today. So I
Ooh.
will reveal my ballot once all of the awards have been given. You might get little
Yeah,
nuggets if you listen to our podcasts. I usually kind of squeak a few things out. And then also, we should have something on CBS Sports. I will not be writing, but I'm going to be a contributor.
mm,
Um, and the write up, I think Jack is going to take care of that. But
mm,
we will, the three of us writers, the WNBA writers for CBS Sports, will give our best guesses for end of season awards.
mm.
I'm not saying that it'll likely be very similar to my ballot, but not necessarily the same. So we can talk about that down the road. But yes, I do have a vote again. Yeah, just like
That's cool.
MVP isn't just the top scorer.
Exactly.
Hello, hello,
Exactly.
hello.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the way I see it, it's interesting that you mentioned that you said that about MVP being different from most outstanding because in my concept of MVP is the player who stands out from everyone else.
yeah,
It's someone who, when you're talking about MVP, you're talking about the best of the best. And the truth is that no one is even close to matching Asia. So the same way that I think there should be MIP and the best comeback player.
Yeah, I've
Um,
seen that. I
which
agree.
some people, yeah, which some people say that it should be Skylar. Some people say that it should be. I think it should be Kennedy Carter if that was the case.
A
I'm a
comeback
big,
player, I
yeah,
could see that. I could definitely see either one of those. Yeah, I say it all the time. MIP, most improved player, too often is a placeholder for, oh yeah, this player was hurt or wasn't in the league for whatever reason. So let's give that to them. That's why I've been pretty bullish about saying Sabrina Ionescu should absolutely be in the conversation for MIP because her game has drastically improved. She's got a nice mid range. Her floater, her defense has gotten better. Her consistency has gotten better. So I think that for me, that's the kind of player. And you don't always. It's sometimes hard for MIP though because you don't always see. It's not so
yeah,
evident. I mean, if you want to keep it funky, you could say Asia Wilson is one of the most improved players because like what she's doing,
exactly.
you
Yeah,
know.
and
Um,
for all of the Liberty fans here, I think Leonie Fibic should be the sixth woman of the year. That's
Ooh, I like it. Now
if I were voting.
the thing that becomes a little bit interesting with sixth woman is you just have to make sure that she has more games coming off of the bench than she
Yeah,
has starts. And that I don't know the number off the top of my head. I just think it could be close.
yeah.
She might have more games coming off the bench, but she has also started a few times. I have to take another look at it. I forget. I have to take a look at the ballot because I think you definitely have to have more time games coming off the bench, which
Mm.
Kubic should have. I don't remember if
She
there's
36-15, so she played
yeah.
36 games, started 15, so I think she
Okay, yeah,
can.
so she should be fine. I don't know if there's a specific threshold, like you have to have started fewer than X amount of
Mhm.
games. I have to take a closer look at the ballot. But this brings us though, Roberta, as we begin to close here, to a good point because it is almost playoff postseason. It is almost award
Woo.
season, and soon enough we will be able to do a Tempestade talk where you and I are in the same room and
Woo.
maybe a few other little nuggets and goodies for our Pacific Northwest
Oh my
listeners
god.
and fans. But you're going to have to stay tuned to Black Rosie Media for that. More
Yes.
details to
Storm
come.
crazies.
Yes, it's going to be a good time. But yeah, I'm planning to be in Seattle because I mentioned the Kraken. We have rookie camp started today. Training camp starts next week. We also have the final home game for the Seattle Storm. I will be in the Emerald City for that. So excited for that and hopefully some storytelling. Not sure if the Storm will be hosting, although I would prefer that
Me too.
just for personal reasons. But they still have a chance. And it all boils down to what they're going to do in the next 4 games. It's not the only thing that matters,
Yeah.
but it is what they can control. So we'll have to see what happens. Yes, Seattle cannot wait.
Beautiful, beautiful
Cannot
city.
wait. It truly, truly
Amazing.
is. Well, Roberta, we're going to give you a chance to get some R&R, get some
Thank you.
echinacea, maybe some elderberry in the system. We appreciate you as always, and thank you, everyone. Angelica came through. I mean, we
Yeah.
had Yael come through, Aloysius, even while the Liberty game is happening, PM channel. Thank you so much for coming across our channel. We hope you stick around. Thank you everyone. Daniel Barry Sports Highlights. Yo,
Yeah.
what's good, fam? Thank you so much for popping through. And now we
Yeah.
will do our awkward wave just for a little bit and then show our end credits.
Yeah.
But Oretta, any other thoughts on the Seattle Storm before we wrap up for real, for real?
The key is consistency, taking care of the ball. Please, rebounds. They need to
Woo!
get rebounds. That has been a struggle for them. Turnovers, which I think is a consequence of a team that's getting to know each other. So take care of the ball, watch, and please get rebounds because they at some games it's like terrible. They're just like not getting it. So I
Yeah.
think that those are two key things, and defense, which with Gabby,
Yeah.
I think is gonna make a
Gabby's
huge
got to
difference.
take the lead there.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And Tyler, the
and
spark plug. Love to
oh
see it.
yeah, yeah.
Yes.
And I want to thank everyone for sticking around. My brain is not very sharp today because I've been battling this cold. I was talking to my mom, and I was like, I knew that, getting into 30, recovering from, even a cold would be rough, but like I just found out now by, personal experience that after 33 it's even harder. So, uh yeah, getting over this cold. So I appreciate you, Erica, and everyone
Of course.
who was here today.
Well, we are sending you well wishes, speedy recovery, all of the things.
Thank you.
And we will catch you next week for another
Yeah.
episode of Tempestade Talk. In case you did not know, Tempestade is the word for storm in Portuguese. So effectively, you
Hmm.
have been listening to Storm Talk on Black Rose
Yeah,
Media.
exactly.
Why say storm when you can say Tempestade?
It's so beautiful. It rolls out of your
Tempestade.
tongue.
It could also be tormenta talk, which is
Tormenta. It's such a beautiful word. Oh my god.
tormenta, tempestade. It's just so beautiful.
It's
Que bonita.
beautiful. Yeah.
So anyway, you'll get all of that flavor, all of that culture. We've got more Latinas now, Angelica,
Woo.
holding it down. Thank you, everyone. Have a good night. I'm gonna go watch the Liberty game.
Me
Joveta, cook
too.
me some soup. Hey, okay, bueno, bueno.
Yeah,
All
I'm
right.
gonna watch the game having some soup.
That's it. That's it. Good night, everybody. We'll catch you again soon.
Good night, everyone.
Bye.